Absolutely. I'm Tim Houle. I'm the county administrator for Crow Wing County. I've been here for 8 years, 22 years in the profession as a county administrator. So a long history in working with extension, both in the old traditional model as well as the new model of extension that has rolled out over the course of the past probably decade, huh? It's been a great benefit. I like to think about the University of Minnesota, this land-grant institution. What was it, 1862? I think it was 1862. And so all of the research that has been done by researchers at the University of Minnesota since 1862. I'm reminded of the Smithsonian Institute, if you've ever seen that in Washington, D.C., and it was built originally to contain all of human knowledge, just the one castle. The University of Minnesota has more than could fill that building. All of the research of the university over the course of all of that time is available. It's extended into greater Minnesota through the University of Minnesota Extension into counties. And so each of our counties has a tap into that body of research. If you can't find a use for that body of research, you're just not thinking hard enough. You know, there's a really rich history, and if we went into certain niche audiences like agriculture or 4-H or even horticulture, I think there's a lot of county residents, if they have questions or issues or want to join 4-H, they know. It's the University of Minnesota Extension Service. So, you know, our office gets a lot of, like every county office, you know, people will bring in a leaf. What's going on with my tree? Or they'll bring in a Ziploc bag, thankfully, full of bugs and say, you know, what kind of bug is this? The resources that the university has to identify them, and then what do you do about them? And so those kinds of things have accumulated over the course of time. It is a challenge, I think, for the university to try to reach all of the 62,000 residents of Crow Wing County. If you think about the technology age that we are in now, the more the university can make those resources available online and then to draw from the experts to fill in the blanks of where that online knowledge did not go for any particular individual is a pretty potent model. It's a challenge, but I think it's going to be driven by need. What do I need information on? I was looking for information just over this past weekend for my own Honeycrisp apple trees, developed by the University of Minnesota, right? And I got a couple of problems with it. And so I looked on the University of Minnesota website, and here's the answers. Pictures that I could identify. Yep, that looks like my apples. What's going on with the tree that they're so small? All of it's there. And I know that if I didn't find my answer in what was on there, I could give you guys a call and you'd connect me with someone who probably helped propagate that particular variety of apples. If I can't find usefulness in that connection, I'm just not thinking hard enough. I think that there is a range of resources that the University of Minnesota Extension Service offers that probably are a little off the beaten track of what people have thought they could provide. In the community vitality area, I have used facilitators from the University of Minnesota Extension to help our county develop a strategic plan. And that's the return on the investment there is huge because there's a limitless supply of good things to do and there's a limited supply of resources with which to do them. We have to choose. So what are the top 5 things that we're going to work on over the course of the next year? The university helped us to get there, to develop what are those top goals and to start the process of who's going to be responsible for what, by when, with who, with what resources to accomplish that plan. Now that's tangible, it's meaningful, and it advances the organization's strategic interests. That's huge. So if you think about the strategic plan value, it's the difference between wandering through the wilderness in the dark, or it's the difference between that and turning on a light bulb and saying, I want to go after those 5 things instead of everything I can see. And so the value to that is we are marshaling our resources all in the same direction towards the same outcomes. It's like hooking a team of horses together and have them all run in different directions. You don't make much progress. One horse pulling against the other. Hook those horses in the braces in the same direction and they can pull an inordinate amount of weight. And so that alignment in the strategic planning, I'll give you another example. Crow Wing County recently adopted a local option sales tax for local roads. Big deal in an adoption of a tax, right? In this day and age, a new tax, that's huge. I probably work for one of the most conservative county boards in Minnesota. But a research study done for us specifically by the Community Vitality Group within the University of Minnesota Extension, one of our extension educators out of the regional office, produced a study for Crow Wing County that said 50% of the sales taxes that are paid in Crow Wing County are paid by people who don't live in Crow Wing County. And so a couple of thoughts come to mind there. One, they're probably driving county roads to get into the county. We're a regional center. They come here for shopping. They come here for tourism. They come here for the weekends. There's a wide variety of things that draw people in, all the way from the metro to just the neighboring counties. They're coming in and they're probably using the county roads. And we know that in Minnesota, the more use you have, the more rapid that infrastructure deteriorates. They're not paying for it. So they're using half of it and not paying for it. The sales tax was the mechanism to get them to pay. And so the adoption of the sales tax generated like $4.5 million in revenue for Crow Wing County. To externalize that tax burden even more, the Crow Wing County Board said, because we have $4.5 million in revenue, we can cut the local highway property tax levy by 1.3, which means the local residents were going to pay even less. You can see the wisdom that even the most conservative county board I think of in Minnesota could use that study to arrive at that political conclusion that the adoption of a new tax served our interests better than what we were doing. If it wasn't for that study, none of that happens. I'll tell you what the impact is. Right now, the way we were doing it, just solely funding it with property tax, Crow Wing County's roads were slowly deteriorating over the long course of time. That whole body of infrastructure was not being maintained at a level that it was going to keep that infrastructure. And you know, with roads, it's slow. It doesn't happen overnight. But we were deferring so much maintenance each year. Now with the adoption of the local option sales tax, we are anticipating within the next 10 years, we will get to a point where we are no longer deferring any maintenance. And of course what that means is the county's road infrastructure is going to slowly but surely improve. Isn't that really what the public is expecting of us? And that couldn't have happened without that research information from the university. How long would you like me to sing the praises of the University of Minnesota Extension? I think it's a great resource in our community. I'm a big fan of education. You can probably tell that. But I just think we're fortunate to have the university in our communities instead of it being this ivory tower that is solely located in St. Paul and Minneapolis.